Hello, my name is John Lindsay, and I'm chair of Friendly to Seniors, and I'll be speaking on behalf of Friendly to Seniors, also on behalf of myself and a few other people who are concerned about the big vote that's coming up on Tuesday. Yes, where will the new arena and event center be located? Well, there's been a lot of almost hysteria about this particular issue. We're here to just talk about it a little bit and just as an ordinary citizen as well too, because as you know, the citizens have not had much input into this particular decision. It seems like the councillors have been involved and they've hired consultants, but those of us who are ordinary citizens, well, we've been sort of left out in the cold, except if we talk to our own councillor, of course. And our own councillors seem to, in many cases, have made up their minds already. So why are we talking to you here? Well, maybe because we feel that another voice may, just may, give some perspective on the whole situation. And on our board here, it's a Saturday afternoon, I've been out gardening. I thought I'd come in and write some of this stuff on the board, and I just read over the Sudbury Star for Saturday, and the editorial, Sudbury councillors need to act boldly. We suggest perhaps they need to act carefully and consider all the facts. Interestingly, on here, a letter to the editor by David Robinson, economic professor. Now, David Robinson is respected across the country internationally as an economist. And unfortunately, not so much here in Sudbury. As a matter of fact, a lot of his opinions seem to have been ignored by our city council, not only this council, but councils in the past. And really that's rather unfortunate, because David has a lot of good things to say. We're going to bring up some of his points in this little presentation here today. On our board here, we've looked at Decision 2017, and this decision will affect for many, many years on into the future, especially the taxes on into the future. Now we have those who are bold, as the star suggests, and those who are cautious, and a lot of the experts are cautious. We talked about David Robinson, and we know he's an economics professor. I have some expertise myself. I was a human resource specialist and labor market analyst for the federal government here for Employment and Immigration Canada for almost 30 years. I also served as chair of the Sudbury School Board. And I was the president of the Sudbury Symphony Orchestra. I've been chair of the Sudbury Arts Council. I'm a believer in the arts. And I do have some background, having been here in Sudbury since 1966. And I've seen the good times and the bad times, and I'm a little afraid of what we're looking at. Now, it's easy to be bold, and especially if you're a dreamer. Dreamers are great, especially if they're using other people's money. Now, are we dreamers? Of course, we're all dreamers. We always want to shoot for the stars. But we also have to be realistic. And looking at Sudbury at the present time, now just not our opinion, but the opinion of the Ontario government, the opinion of other experts who are reputable people, say that we're looking low or no growth and population decline into the future. The most conservative is that we may remain at our present population level, whatever that might happen to be, to around the year 2041. Others are saying we could drop by 30,000 people by that time, which I'm more or less inclined to feel that might be correct, because don't forget, we have 30,000 people over the age of 65 at the present time. We have the largest percentage of older people than any other city in Ontario, possible exception of Elliott Lake. So here we are. We have an older population and a dying population, because those 65 and over are going to die, and are they going to be replaced by new workers? Hardly unlikely, according to many sources. So there we have it. Sudbury is not going to dry up and blow away by any stretch of the imagination, but we're not going to have perhaps the same population base, which is an assessment base, by the way. Population depends, really on growth and on assessment. And if you don't have the growth and you don't have the assessment, how are you going to afford certain things? Now, we have a number of things that we're looking at here. In the future, we're looking at a number of big projects, not only the arena and the event center. which could be $100 million according to the consultants. Also, we're looking at the Synergy Center, that's around $65 million. We're looking at the library and art gallery, which is, 40 million plus, who knows how much is in there. Now, at the same time, we have an infrastructure deficit. That's our pipes in the ground, and that's our roads, which we know are in deplorable shape. Just ask anybody who comes to visit you in Sudbury, and they'll say the same thing. What happened to your roads? And we say, well, we just can't keep up with the repairs. Of course, we are building some new roads, perhaps we don't need. But in any event, $1 billion, that is a lot of money to pay for off into the future. Now, revenue, well, we can see with the declining population, with an assessment base that's dropping, we know just recently we've probably reached retail capacity here in town. We know the university told us declining enrollment. We know in the public and separate boards there's declining enrollment. We know we've lost hundreds of jobs, perhaps thousands in the last couple of years. So really, to be realistic, it means we have to be cautious. Now let's talk about the arts. Now, as I say, I'm a great supporter of the arts, although things have changed over the years. Now things have changed. Here we have the Sudbury Star, once tens of thousands of circulation, now down to just a few thousand papers distributed. Most people read it apparently online, if they read it at all. And Northern Life, gone to one paper per week, and they're online as well too. So what really has happened is not that our arts community has dried up. On the contrary, we have more activity in the arts than ever before. However, it is a micro environment for the arts, a lot of small arts activities, because we can look at the Sudbury Symphony, and I was chair of the Sudbury Symphony Orchestra back when we had 600 or 700, managed to move over to Glad Tidings when we had 1,200 people attending, and now it's dropped back down to the point where the symphony is back once again in the Fraser Auditorium because of declining attendance. And the same thing with the Sudbury Theatre Center. So what we're happening is big venue events are on the decline, but small events in smaller venues are on the increase. So we have a micro arts environment, which I think a lot of people seem to have ignored. So really, maybe we shouldn't be looking at big, we should be looking at small. So some of these things we're looking at the present time with our council perhaps being overwhelmed by some of the information that's coming in, which maybe is not coming from the people, because in our seniors groups, we've found out that 88% are unhappy with the taxes we have now. And with a projected tax increase of 3.5%, and that's without adding anything on top, without adding the arena, without adding the Synergy Center or the new library and the gallery. And just one thing about libraries and galleries, that's almost last century because they're declining in attendance as well too. Things have changed a lot. It's not all because of Netflix, but really we have a number of other factors impacting what's going on in the community at the present time. And one of them is lack of disposable income. And of course the fact that our large senior population, many of whom are in fixed income, that don't have the extra money to pay increases in taxes, which we may well get, regardless of who builds the arena. Because let's face it, private individuals are not going to build an arena, because arenas across the country, there's no arena that makes money, period. So if you're building an arena, you better be looking for somebody else's money to build it, and also somebody else's money, which is the taxpayers' money, to maintain it over time. These are the experts talking, and this is realistic. You've got to face the realistic position that our community is in. Mining industry down, education down, a growing seniors population which is going to decline, young people leaving the city. We're not going to dry up. We have to be optimistic, but we have to be realistic, and maybe we have to think more micro than macro. And one final thing before we go, and that's the casino that we're looking at. Perhaps the savior. Actually, it's not the savior. If you want full information on the casino, go to the website nocasinosudbury.ca. That's nocasinosudbury.ca. And you'll see information, some of the latest information by Tom Fortin, who's one of the, well, he's against the casino, along with many other of us, not just for social reasons and health reasons, but for economic reasons. Because a casino sucks out, as David Robinson says, like a vacuum cleaner, great sums of money from your community for very little return. So we have to very carefully look at what we're doing. So we suggest that we need more public input. We need to carefully examine our wants and our needs, and we need to educate the general public, and not only the general public, we need to educate those that we have elected, and of course our staff as well too, because you know, if you're in the Sunshine Club and you're at Tom Davies Square, are you really worried about your small tax increase of only 3.5% or maybe 6 or 7%, or depending what it might be, if you of course incorporate all these lovely new projects into the budget for the coming years? And we're talking years, because we're looking at paying off just the arena, regardless of who builds it, if it's private or if it's public or public-private. We're looking at tax increases and debt over perhaps 30 years or more. A lot of us are suggesting, many seniors particularly, who've been here for a long time, suggesting that maybe it's time to look at what we got and to renovate that, to take a look at some of our downtown buildings, and perhaps we can incorporate them into new initiatives, new developments. We can look at the arena and see what we can do to that to restore it, because we know we're not going to get big like we were before. So perhaps we have to think micro. We have to think how we can get the best bang for the dollar. So getting back to the beginning here, act boldly. Councillors, we suggest you act cautiously. We suggest more public input, more consultation, go over the figures very carefully, and look at what you're doing for debt over a long period of time to a community that's not going to be growing as it was in the past. Those of us who were here many, many years can remember Sudbury with a population of around 150,000 people. Then it went up quite a bit by several more tens of thousands of people. And now we're in a position once again where we're holding our own, but we could drop. Some very important things to think about. So regardless of whether you're a dreamer or a realist, remember, we need to talk more about it with more public input and more consideration. Don't forget, it's your future. Depend upon it.